The year of 2017 in WWE brought us some truly unforgettable moments. The return of the Hardy Boys at WrestleMania 33, the insane four-way main event of SummerSlam, and who could forget the legendary reveal of Jason Jordan as Kurt Angle's illegitimate son. Classic stuff. Yet, as always, not everything was perfect in the land of McMahon. With the brand split still in full effect, Raw and SmackDown had very limited rosters and struggled to build stars. 2017 was also the year that the Universal Championship was taken hostage by Brock Lesnar, and of course, it was the year of Jinder Mahal as WWE Champion. But what about the matches? What was some of the worst to take place across the many hours of TV and the 25 different pay-per-views and network specials to take place in 2017? Well, look no further, because that's what I'm here for. I'm Adam Pachisi from Cultaholic Wrestling, and these are the 10 worst WWE matches of 2017. Join us! Number 10, Big Cass vs Big Show at SummerSlam. After viciously splitting up from Enzo Amore earlier in the year, Big Cass established himself as a monster heel in need of another giant to do battle with. Enter the Big Show. Unfortunately, their match at SummerSlam was about as slow and lumbering as you would expect from two men their size, plus it had the added annoyance of Enzo being suspended above the ring in a shark cage. The worst part of the whole thing was when Enzo stripped down to his underwear and covered himself in baby oil in order to slip out of the cage, only to drop to the mat and get immediately taken out by Cass. Big Cass got the win in the end, but this encounter did absolutely nothing for any of the three men involved. Also, SummerSlam was in New York that year, the same city that Enzo and Cass are from. Surely WWE could have come up with something better for them in front of their home crowd. Well, apparently not. Number 9, Brock Lesnar vs Braun Strowman at No Mercy. The main event of No Mercy 2017 was a victim of its own hype. Well, that and the fact that it was crap. Braun Strowman had put on the showing of a lifetime in the fatal four-way main event of SummerSlam, standing toe-to-toe with Brock Lesnar and even getting the better of the Beast. Lesnar just about escaped with his title reign intact, but this set up a Universal Championship match between the two at No Mercy. Fans didn't exactly expect Braun to win, but the pair would at least have another great match, right? Well, no, that didn't happen. First of all, the bout was completely the wrong style for these two mountains of men. It was a slow, methodical wrestling match as opposed to the high-octane car crash that had come at SummerSlam. The fans were simply not happy as they had been expecting the latter. Secondly, it totally killed Braun's momentum as Brock dispatched the challenger with just a single F5. It would take months to rehabilitate Strowman, and WWE missed a huge opportunity to solidify him as one of their stars of the future. Well, at least he wasn't dumped in the back of a garbage truck, eh? That would happen at the next pay-per-view. Number 8, Roman Reigns vs The Undertaker at WrestleMania 33. Admittedly, the post-match angle for WrestleMania's 33 main event was exceptional. After 27 long years in WWE, The Undertaker finally hung up his hat and coat for good, descending into the floor one last time as over 70,000 people chanted his name. It was a seriously touching moment, almost enough to make you forget that it wasn't actually his retirement, and also forget about the match that came before it. Taker's retirement match against Roman Reigns was the worst thing to happen to the dead man since his parents were killed in that fire. It became sadly apparent that the Phenom simply couldn't go at his usual high level anymore, and messed up spot after spot. The worst of these was an attempted tombstone reversal, which saw both men topple sadly to the canvas. The longer the fight went on, the harder it got to watch, as the larger-than-life Undertaker looked more and more like a run-down veteran. Reigns finally put Mean Mark out of his misery with a spear, becoming just the second person ever to beat him at WrestleMania. Then came the retirement, which ended up being about as permanent as Taker's black hair dye. In hindsight, whilst it wasn't the worst match of 2017, it was perhaps the biggest anticlimax. I guess at least we can be grateful that this wasn't the dead man's true send-off. Number 7, Kevin Owens vs AJ Styles at Battleground. Despite being two of the most captivating wrestlers of their generation, Kevin Owens and AJ Styles couldn't buy a good match together in WWE. Their feud over the US title throughout the summer of 2017 is the perfect example of this. The pair had 3 matches for the belt on pay-per-view, one ended in count-out, one had Shane McMahon in it, and the other seemingly ended by mistake? Yes, at Battleground, Owens accidentally pinned AJ to win his third United States Championship. At least it certainly looked like it was an accident, as Owens awkwardly rolled Styles over for the referee to make the count. The wrestlers looked confused, the announce team sounded confused, and the crowd were confused too, especially as Owens had only just lost the title to AJ 2 weeks earlier. Further evidence that the title change was a mistake came on the next episode of SmackDown when Styles reclaimed the championship during a triple threat. WWE flew Chris Jericho in especially for the episode, presumably so that AJ could pin him to win the belt. All in all, this was just a big old mess, and it was symptomatic of the surprising lack of chemistry between these two in-ring greats. Number 6, Charlotte Flair versus Nia Jax on Raw. Some of you may remember that on an August 2021 episode of Monday Night Raw, Charlotte Flair and Nia Jax got into what looked like a legitimate fight. What began as a few botched moves soon descended into full-on slapping and shoving as the two women got visibly more and more angry with one another. As shocking as it is to see such a match on live TV, perhaps it shouldn't have been that surprising considering the two had a similarly rough encounter in 2017. On the April 10th, 2017 edition of Raw, Jax and Flair faced off in a short but nearly lethal bout. Things got off to a bad start when Nia dropped Charlotte headfirst onto the mat after a shoulder breaker before the Queen got a measure of revenge, accidentally smashing Nia's head with her boot off a missed moonsault. Mercifully, the match lasted less than 6 minutes and neither competitor was seriously hurt. But still, it was a tough thing to watch, and one has to wonder whether any animosity between the two carried over into their scuffle 4 years later. Number 5, the women's Money in the Bank ladder match at Money in the Bank. Sometimes a finish to a match can be so bad that it can cast an unfortunate shadow over the good work that came before it. And that is certainly true of the 2017 Women's Money in the Bank ladder match, which was the very first of its kind. Competitors like Becky Lynch, Natalya, and Carmella pulled out all the stops to make its maiden voyage a memorable one, but sadly, the only thing this match is remembered for is its shoddy ending. Just when it looked like Lynch was about to claim the prize, James Ellsworth pushed the ladder over. He then put it back up, climbed up himself, and retrieved the briefcase for Carmella. In case you missed that, the first ever Women's Money in the Bank match was won by a man. And not just any man, but James bloody Ellsworth. So bad was the ending to this match that WWE decided to redo the entire thing 2 days later on SmackDown, and Carmella won that one as well. Number 4, Randy Orton versus Bray Wyatt at WrestleMania 33. Anyone who has been keeping up with the series will know that Randy Orton and Bray Wyatt dominated both the 2020 and 2021 lists. But Orton's horrible rivalry with The Fiend can be traced all the way back to this match at WrestleMania 33, where the Viper met the Eater of Worlds for the WWE title. The match had been building for months following Orton's alliance with and betrayal of the Wyatt family. Fans were expecting a vicious blood feud between the two rivals, but what they actually got was a series of PowerPoint presentations. The bout started off well enough, but things got super silly when Bray used his magical projector to cast an image of some maggots onto the ring canvas. Okay, thought the audience, that's weird, but let's see where it goes. Unfortunately, where it went was just more images of insects. Cockroaches, earthworms, all the classics were there, and the fans, well, they had completely switched off by this point. This, combined with some pretty dull in-ring action, means that this encounter sadly goes down as one of the worst WWE title matches in WrestleMania history. Number 3, Alexa Bliss versus Bayley at Extreme Rules. At Payback 2017, Alexa Bliss dethroned Bayley to win her first Raw Women's Championship. This was less than ideal for the former NXT Women's Champion, but things were about to get a whole lot worse. When a rematch was made for Extreme Rules, we all wondered what the stipulation would be. Perhaps it would be a coal miner's glove match, or a reverse battle royal. Maybe WWE were bringing back Kennel from Hell. Actually, it was worse than all of those put together. Instead, the two women fought in a kendo stick on a pole match. Now, any wrestling fan worth their salt will know to run for the hills whenever the words "on a pole" are introduced, and that's exactly what we should have done here. Bliss absolutely wrecked Bayley, beating her in just over 5 minutes before the hugger could even use the match's weapon of choice. That is embarrassing enough, but it gets worse when you remember that the stipulation was actually Bayley's idea in the first place. A bad match type with catastrophic results for Bayley, this bout was the final nail in the coffin for what was once a very promising babyface. Number 2, Bray Wyatt vs Randy Orton at Payback. Less than a month after their disastrous WrestleMania match, Wyatt and Orton outdid themselves with the House of Horrors. A precursor to the cinematic matches that dominated lockdown wrestling, the House of Horrors was a partially pre-taped segment which saw Randy visit Bray's derelict home. When inside, Orton was subjected to all kinds of spooky magic, including a haunted fridge! Woo! The scariest of all kitchen appliances. The following 10 or so minutes consisted of Orton walking into various weird rooms around the house, only for Bray to jump out and attack him. Surprise! He's done exactly the same thing again. The action made its way all the way to the arena via limousine, where Wyatt beat Orton thanks to an assist from Jinder Mahal. This match can be seen as a major clue in terms of what followed, with Vince pushing Bray as an overly goofy supernatural character as opposed to a more serious, captivating presence. Some people enjoyed the camp silliness of the House of Horrors, but for others it was a step too far. Take into consideration that Randy was WWE champion at the time, and you could probably understand why so many people were against it. And as if things couldn't get any worse, the match even had a bit of Jinder at the end of it. What's wrong with Jinder, you ask? Well, number 1, Jinder Mahal vs Randy Orton at Battleground. For those who don't know what the Punjabi prison match is, firstly, good for you. Secondly, it's kinda like Hell in a Cell if, instead of steel, the cell was made of giant toothpicks. The match concept lay dormant for a decade after No Mercy 2007, only to rise from the dead at Battleground for Jinder Mahal's WWE Championship defense against Randy Orton. Somebody should have taken one of those bamboo stakes and driven it through the heart of whatever demon came up with this infernal idea in the first place. The Battleground match had exactly the same issues as every other Punjabi prison match. The space was extremely limiting, it took forever to climb out of the cage, and nobody could see anything because there were dozens of giant wooden rods in the way. Just as Orton looked to have the match won, who should come out to stop him but the Great Khali, the innovator of the prison match and one of the greatest technical wrestlers of all time. Thanks to Khali's glacially slow interference, Mahal retained the title, which his gigantic friend then proceeded to hold upside down. A bad ending to a bad match. Let's just hope it's another 10 years before we see the dreaded Punjabi prison again.